In 1993, Edward Cross did something that shocked everyone in his town. He stopped trying to grow regular grass on his farm. Instead, he planted legumes, flowers that fix nitrogen in the soil. His neighbors laughed at him. The banker said he was going to lose everything. The farm store owner told him he was making a huge mistake. But Edward knew something they didn't. His dead father had left behind 30 notebooks full of drawings and notes about plants and soil. Edward finally decided to read them. 5 years later, when the worst drought in history hit, Edward's farm had green grass everywhere. His neighbors' farms were dead and brown. Before we keep going, where are you from? And if you like stories about farms and nature, please subscribe. We make new stories every week. Edward Cross was 52 years old in 1993. He had worked on the same farm his whole life. 1,200 acres that his grandfather had bought in 1952. Edward's father, William, had loved writing things down. While other farmers just worried about money, William wrote about dirt, plants, and water. He filled 17 notebooks with drawings and observations. When William died in 1988, Edward got all the notebooks, but he didn't read them carefully for 5 years. He was too busy doing what every other farmer did: plant grass, use fertilizer, make the cows eat more. By 1993, everything was falling apart. The dirt was hard and dead. The water under the ground was going down fast. His cows were skinny. He owed the bank a lot of money. He was going to lose the farm. One night, Edward started reading his father's notebooks carefully. His father had discovered something important. A long time ago, before farms, elk and sheep used to live on this land. These animals didn't stay in one place. They moved around. This movement helped the land stay healthy. William had written, "If we move the cows like the elk moved, the land will heal itself." William also noticed something about legumes, plants that have pretty flowers. These plants had deep roots that could find water far underground. They also put good stuff back into the dirt that other plants needed. Every other farmer had done the opposite. They pulled out the legume flowers and planted short-rooted grass. This made the problem worse. Edward realized his father had figured out something important. Don't fight nature. Work with nature. He called the farm office for advice. The man on the phone laughed. "Just plant wheatgrass," he said. "That's what works." But Edward trusted his father's notebooks more. In spring 1994, Edward made his big decision. He took 340 acres, about 1/3 of his farm. He removed the regular grass seed. Then he planted 3 special types of flowers. Sainfoin, a flower plant with roots that go 15 feet deep, alfalfa. Another flower plant that likes dry places, shepherdia. A bush that makes the dirt better cost, $16,000. He had to borrow money from the bank again. Then came the strange part. He moved his cows every 5 days to a new part of the farm. Then he let that part rest for 30-40 days. His neighbors thought he was crazy. "You're wasting time moving them so much," the banker said. "That's a waste of grass," his neighbor Doug said at the grain store. But Edward had his father's notes, and he was willing to try something different. Year 1, 1994-1995. Nothing seems to happen. The flowers grew slowly. The cows seemed confused about moving all the time. Edward spent every morning moving fences by hand. He wrote everything down in a notebook, just like his father did. Nothing exciting happened, but underground, things were changing. The roots of the legumes were breaking up the hard dirt. Good bugs and microbes were waking up in the soil. The land was slowly getting healthier. By fall, Edward noticed something. The dirt was turning brown again. It looked alive. He sent dirt samples to the lab. When they came back, the results were good, but not amazing yet. Year 2, 1995, 1996. Small changes. The sainfoin flowers were blooming now, pretty pink flowers across the brown dirt. Edward's cows were getting fatter on this new food. They didn't need as much grain from the store. A butcher in town noticed something. Edward's meat tasted better than other farmers' meat. "What are you doing different?" the butcher asked on the phone. "Letting the cows eat better plants," Edward said. "The soil tests came back better this time. The dirt was holding more water. Things were working." Year 3, 1996, 1997. Growing proof now. Edward was selling his meat directly to the butcher instead of going through the regular market. The butcher kept ordering more because people wanted it. Other restaurants started asking for Edward's beef. The drought was starting in 1997. Rain wasn't falling as much. Other farmers were getting worried. But Edward's special legume plants were still green. Their deep roots found water deep underground, where other plants couldn't reach. Edward wrote in his notebook, "The flowers are working." Year 4, 1998, 1999. The big drought and everything changes. In 1998, the worst drought ever hit. Rain didn't fall for almost 2 years. Wells ran dry. Other farmers had to buy water by the truckload. It cost them thousands of dollars. Other farmers sold their cows cheap because they couldn't feed them. But something incredible happened on Edward's farm. The legume flowers kept growing. The deep roots found water deep underground. The cows stayed healthy and fat. Edward's wells only went down a little bit. Other farmers' wells went down 8 to 12 feet. Edward's only went down 3 feet. One afternoon in July 1998, Edward's neighbor Doug came to the fence. "Edward, I need help," Doug said. His cows looked sick and skinny. "What are you doing?" Edward took Doug inside and showed him the notebooks, his father's old ones and his own new ones with all his careful writing. "Why didn't you tell me?" Doug asked, shocked. "I didn't think you'd believe me," Edward said honestly. Year 5, 1999 to 2000. The answer by 2000, it was clear Edward was right. His cows were bigger and healthier than other farmers' cows, even during the bad drought. The dirt tests showed the soil was much better. It held water like a sponge now. Most amazing, the water underground started coming back up. For 15 years it had been going down. Now it was going up. In fall 2000, a scientist named Dr. Michael Harrison drove from the university to see Edward's farm. He looked at the dirt. He read both sets of notebooks, the father's and the son's. "This is amazing," Dr. Harrison said. "You figured out something we teach in university classes. You brought back what nature used to do." Later, Dr. Harrison wrote about Edward's farm in a science magazine. By 2001, farmers from all over were calling Edward on the phone. The bank manager who said Edward would fail was now apologizing. The farm store owner who laughed at him wanted to know what he did. Even Doug Hartley, his neighbor who had laughed the loudest, changed 180 acres of his farm to use Edward's system. "You were right," Doug said simply at the grain store. "I just didn't understand fast enough." Edward didn't brag. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just shared his notebooks with anyone who wanted to learn. By 2002, everything was different. The butcher in town paid Edward more money for his meat because it was better quality than other farms' meat. Edward had paid off all his debt. He was not going to lose the farm anymore. But the coolest thing was the land itself. Dead dirt became alive again. Plants grew that hadn't grown in 30 years. Animals came back, deer, coyotes, and even bighorn sheep that people hadn't seen in 35 years. 3 things you can learn from Edward's story. 1. Listen to your elders. Edward's father figured out important things and wrote them down. Edward listened and tried it. Sometimes old people know things that young people don't. Don't be too quick to ignore them. 2. Nature is smarter than humans. Edward didn't try to fight the drought. He worked with how nature works. This is why he survived when other farmers failed. Listen to what nature is trying to tell you. 3. Proof is better than talking. Edward didn't argue with people. He just let his farm show the results. By year 4, everyone could see he was right. If you have a good idea, show people with actions, not just words. In 2003, Edward's son James came back to the farm after college. They walked through the green fields at sunset. The pretty pink and yellow flowers were glowing in the gold light. Edward carried his father's old notebooks, worn and filled with writing on the pages. "Grandpa figured this out," James said. "No," Edward said, putting his arm around James. He asked the questions, but I had to be patient enough to let the land answer. Standing there, looking at the healthy green farm, Edward thought about his father writing in those notebooks for 30 years. His father never knew if anyone would read them. But the land knew. The land was waiting for someone to finally understand. Everyone said Edward Cross was crazy when he planted legume flowers. By 2003, that crazy idea had saved his farm and helped other farmers too. The land rewards people who finally learn to listen.